The rain hit the pavement in sharp, uneven drops. Darius ran through the dimly lit street, one hand shielding his face, the other clutching a brown envelope, his last paycheck. He'd just been laid off, not because he was lazy or careless, but because the company was restructuring. That word stung. As he stopped under a flickering streetlight, the weight of his life pressed down on him. Rent due, debts unpaid, dreams postponed again. He whispered to himself, "Why does money always slip away from me?" For a moment the city noise faded. All he could hear was his heartbeat, tired, angry, defeated. He walked home that night in silence. The next morning, sunlight poured through his window like nothing had changed, but inside everything had. Darius sat on his bed staring at a note stuck on his mirror, one he'd written years ago. "You will live free one day." He laughed bitterly. Free? I can't even afford to rest, but somewhere deep inside, a question began to stir, a small, stubborn spark. What if the problem isn't how much I earn, but what I do with it? He opened his laptop and searched. How do people build wealth that lasts? Among the endless noise of tips and tricks, one phrase caught his eye. Wealth begins not with money, but with wisdom. Something about that line felt real, human. And then, as if by fate, he remembered a man he used to see every morning, Elias, a calm, older gentleman who owned a small bookstore near the bus stop. Everyone said he was wise. Some whispered that he'd built quiet wealth over the years, not from luck, but from patience. Darius grabbed his jacket. For the first time in weeks, he had a purpose. The bell above the bookstore door chimed softly as Darius stepped in. Rows of books stretched out like silent teachers. Behind the counter sat Elias, polishing his glasses with the same calm expression he always wore. "Ah, Darius," Elias said with a smile. "It's been a while." Darius nodded nervously. "Yeah, I've been better." Elias gestured toward a chair. "Sit. You look like a man carrying too much." They sat facing each other. For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of light rain tapping against the window filled the air. Finally, Darius spoke. "Elias, you always seemed at peace, like you figured life out while the rest of us keep chasing it. How did you do it? How did you build wealth that actually lasts?" Elias chuckled softly. "Wealth," he repeated. "Ah, that old word. People chase it their whole lives, not realizing it isn't something you chase, it's something you grow." Darius frowned. "Grow? Like a tree?" "Exactly," Elias said. "But tell me, what kind of gardener plants nothing and expects a harvest?" Darius looked down, embarrassed. "I guess that's me. I earn, I spend, I wait for more, but nothing changes." Elias leaned forward. "Then perhaps it's time you learn how wealth is truly built. Not the quick kind that fades, but the kind that stays." "Will you teach me?" Darius asked quietly. Elias smiled, a slow, knowing smile. "If you're willing to listen, not just with your ears, but with your life, then yes." He stood and walked toward a bookshelf, running his fingers along the spines. "Come back tomorrow. I'll share with you 7 truths that built everything I have." As Darius left the shop, the rain had stopped. The clouds were breaking, and a faint golden light touched the wet streets. For the first time in years, he didn't feel hopeless. He felt hungry for change, for understanding, for wisdom. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice whispered, "This is where everything begins." The next morning, Darius returned to the bookstore. Elias was already there, sitting by the window with 2 cups of coffee. He looked up and smiled. "You came back. Good. That means you're ready?" "I am," Darius said. "I want to understand what I've been missing." Elias nodded. "Then listen closely. Wealth doesn't begin with coins or notes. It begins with habits. Let's start with the first, lesson 1. Pay yourself first. Elias leaned back. Every time you earn, you pay others, your landlord, the shops, the bills, everyone except yourself. That's why you stay poor. From this moment, Darius, before you pay anyone else, pay you. Darius frowned. How? Save at least 10% of all you earn, Elias said. Not what's left after spending, before spending. That small portion will become your seed. Darius sighed. 10% doesn't sound like much. Elias smiled. It isn't. That's the point. You won't feel it missing, but in time you'll see it grow. Wealth is not born from amounts. It's born from discipline. Lesson 2. Control your spending. Elias continued. The second truth. Learn to live beneath your means. Darius groaned. That's hard. There's always something new to buy. Elias laughed softly. That's the trap. The world will always tempt you. The trick is to separate desires from needs. Spend on what adds value, not vanity, because the more you chase things, the more those things own you. Darius sat back, thinking of all the things he'd bought to impress people who didn't even notice. I've been working for approval, he admitted. And it has cost you peace, Elias replied gently. Control your wants, and you'll find freedom. Lesson 3. Make your money multiply. Elias stood and walked toward a shelf lined with old coins. Look at these, he said. I bought them years ago. Not for their beauty, but because they remind me. Money must work. Work? Darius asked. Yes, Elias said. Don't let your savings sleep. Invest wisely in things you understand. Let your money have children and their children, grandchildren. That is how wealth multiplies. But what if I lose it? Then learn from it, Elias replied. Even a lost coin teaches more than idle money. Lesson 4. Protect your wealth from loss. Elias's tone grew firm. Be careful where you place your trust. The world is full of promises, but not all are true. Don't invest just because someone sounds confident. Invest because you understand. Guard your money like a soldier guards his post. Darius nodded slowly. I've lost money chasing quick returns. We all have, Elias said kindly. But the wise learn. Remember this. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Lesson 5. Own what you can. Elias continued. Another path to lasting wealth. Own the ground beneath your feet. Home gives you stability. It roots your labor into something real. Rent buys shelter for a night. Ownership builds peace for a lifetime. Darius thought of his cramped apartment and the endless rent alerts that haunted his phone. One day, he said quietly. Not one day, Elias replied. Start today, even with small steps. Every great foundation began as a single brick lesson. 6. Secure your future income. Elias placed his cup down gently. Most people work only for today. The wise also work for tomorrow. Build sources that feed you even when you're too old to work. Investments, skills, relationships. Wealth that serves only the present is fragile. Darius looked thoughtful. I've never planned that far ahead. Then start, Elias said. Time is either your ally or your enemy. You choose which. Lesson 7. Increase your ability to earn. Finally, Elias smiled. And the 7th, never stop learning. Every new skill, every piece of knowledge makes you more valuable. The more value you bring to the world, the more it rewards you. Darius exhaled. So wealth isn't really about money? Elias nodded. Exactly. Money is a reflection of wisdom, discipline, and purpose. You change those, and wealth follows. They sat in silence for a while, the soft hum of the city beyond the window. Then Elias leaned forward. Darius, Wealth isn't magic. It's rhythm. Earn, save, invest, protect, and grow. Repeat it, and it will never leave you. Darius smiled faintly. It sounds simple. It is, Elias said. Simple, not easy. A week later, Darius began to apply the lessons. He created a savings account labeled Freedom Fund. He cut down on unnecessary spending. He started reading books about investment and value creation. For the first time, he felt in control. Not of the world, but of himself. One night, while journaling, he paused and smiled. I'm finally becoming the gardener Elias talked about. He closed his notebook and whispered, Thank you, Elias. Before we move on to Darius's transformation and legacy, a quick reminder. If this story has inspired you so far, don't forget to subscribe to True Tone Stories for more powerful lessons like this. Your support helps us share more stories that move hearts and minds. Years passed. The city changed. New buildings, new faces, new dreams. But in one quiet corner of it all, a small cafe buzzed with familiar calm. Inside sat Darius, older now but not weary. His eyes carried a light that only peace can give. He opened his old notebook, the one he'd once called Freedom Fund Journal. On the first page were the words Elias had told him. Wealth is a rhythm. Earn, save, invest, protect, grow. He smiled. Everything had changed since that day in the bookstore. He'd built his own company, small but steady. He'd paid off his debts, owned his home, invested carefully, and most of all, he'd learned to live with purpose. But what he cherished most wasn't the comfort or the numbers. It was the wisdom, the understanding that true wealth is not measured in coins, but in calm. One afternoon, a young man entered the cafe. He looked exhausted, the kind of tired that comes from chasing everything and catching nothing. He hesitated before walking up to Darius. Excuse me, he said. You're Mr. Darius, right? Yes, Darius replied warmly. Please have a seat. The young man sat down, eyes restless. I've heard about you, he said. They say you built something from nothing. I've been working hard, but nothing's working. I can't seem to move forward. Darius looked at him, and for a moment he saw himself from years ago, sitting in Elias's bookstore, asking the same question. He smiled softly. You remind me of someone I once knew. Let me tell you something my mentor taught me. Darius leaned forward. There's a rhythm to wealth. Earn, save, invest, protect, and grow. Break that rhythm and life feels unstable. Keep it, and everything changes. The young man nodded slowly. It sounds simple, Darius chuckled. That's what I said. But remember, it's not about how much you make. It's about what you keep and what you learn. The young man frowned. So you're saying it's not luck? No, Darius said. It's choice. Every day, every paycheck, every decision, they shape your future. Start with one step. Pay yourself first. The young man looked down, absorbing every word. Do you really think I can change? Darius smiled. If I could, anyone can. They sat in silence for a moment. 2 generations, 1 lesson. Later that evening, Darius walked to the old bookstore. The bell above the door chimed, the same soft sound from years ago. The shop was quieter now, dustier. Elias's old chair sat empty, but his presence still lingered. Darius ran his fingers along the shelves, whispering, Thank you, my teacher. He picked up a small, worn book and turned the first page. Inside was a note, written in Elias's careful handwriting. When you've mastered wealth, share it, for wisdom unshared dies in silence. Darius closed the book and smiled. I understand now. As he stepped outside, the evening sun painted the sky gold. He stood there, watching life move, people rushing, horns blaring, laughter rising. He whispered almost to himself, True wealth isn't about escaping the storm. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. He paused, letting the breeze carry the words away. Then, with calm conviction, he added, "Wealth isn't built in the hands. It's built in the mind, and guarded by wisdom." He walked home that evening with nothing but peace in his heart. No fear, no hurry, just quiet gratitude. The man who once chased money had become the man money followed, not because he wanted more, but because he'd learned enough. If this story touched you, subscribe to True Tone Stories for more life-changing lessons told through timeless stories. Like this video if Darius's journey inspired you. And tell us in the comments, what part of his story spoke to you the most? Your voice matters. Your growth matters. And remember, wealth begins not with money, but with wisdom.